About 2 weeks back, we began a series called The Master's Sign, taking from John chapter 20, verses 30 and 31, where John talks about why he's writing his gospel, and we discussed why each gospel wrote his gospel to the world, with what aim did these writers write. And John's gospel is written very specifically to prove that Jesus is God. If you have an understanding, a wrong understanding that Jesus is one of the gods, or if you have an understanding that Jesus is only a guru, probably an enlightened one like Buddha, John wanted to prove, no. Jesus is the only way, the truth, and life. And let me prove it to you through his life. That's what he was trying to do in this gospel, as he recounts events that happened in the life of Jesus, as he reminds us of the teachings of Jesus Christ through his gospel. He picked up things, events, teachings that point to Jesus as the only God, as the Son of God. And once you see them, his goal, John's goal, is that we may believe in him, believe that he is God, and have life through him. That was the aim with which he began to write. And I believe that's one of the main reasons he picked up very few miracles that Jesus did, and he called them signs. Things that broke the law, the things that we think the natural law, or the boundaries that we keep, and we think things have to happen only this way. Anything that crosses that becomes automatically the miracle. And John picked up those miracles, 7 of them, and called them signs. The reason he called them signs is because each miracle points to something great about God, something no other human can do, no other guru can do, no other God-man can do, but only God can do. So each of those signs point to something that shows the quality that Jesus is divine, the character of Jesus as divine. Last week we looked at the first miracle which Jesus performed at the wedding of Cana, and we have learned some very beautiful lessons out of the exposition that we did from chapter 2, verses 1 to 11, where we saw how Jesus entered calmly into a wedding into which he's been invited. And then when the crisis hit that marriage, that wedding, God just took control of the situation and then changed the entire mood of that wedding. And he can do the same with your marriage too. Even now, you have an opportunity to invite Jesus into your marriage. And if he walks into your marriage, quietly he would transform everything about your marriage. Everything about your relationship. It could be at the verge of divorce. If you choose to invite Jesus to come into your marriage, he would change. He would, just like how he transformed water into wine without the help of grape, he can do that with you. At the molecule level, Jesus changes you completely if you invite him into your lives. Not only in your marriages, but even in your personal life, Jesus can do the same. He will transform you completely from who you are today to something else, something beautiful. How that something else looks like is what we saw in the words of the chief guest in that wedding. What did he say? Everybody gives the good wine in the beginning and cheap wine at the end, but you kept the not good, but the best till the end. You are giving the best at the end. You gave the good, but you also are giving the best now. So that's what we see. That's the only quality we see only in God, not in any other person. When Jesus does something in your life, it would be the best. Nothing less. Not slightly 99.99%, but it'll be the best. The best that you can never find another comparison to that. That's how he's going to transform your lives, your marriages, your situations, your business, if you allow Jesus to be part of your life. That's what we have learned last week. Of course, we learned many other lessons, but that was the primary lesson that we took away last Sunday. Today, we're going to look at another miracle, the second sign that John talks about in John chapter 4. as I've already told you last week, that I'm not specifically going in a particular thematic manner or a topical manner, but I'm just going to just take the scriptures and try and expose and see what all we can learn out of that. John chapter 4, verses 46. Let me read that entire miracle for you today, and we'll come back and pick up verses and try and see what we can learn. So he came again to Cana in Galilee, where he had made the water wine. And at Capernaum, there was an official whose son was ill. When this man heard that Jesus had come from Judea to Galilee, he went to him and asked him to come down and heal his son, for he was at the point of death. So Jesus had said to him, "Unless you see signs and wonders, you will not believe." The official said to him, "Sir, come down. Please come down before my child dies." So Jesus said to him, "Go, your son will live." The man believed the word that Jesus spoke to him and went on his way. As he was going down, his servants met him and told him that his son was recovering. So he asked them the hour when he began to get better. And they said to him, "Yesterday at the 7th hour, the fever left him." The father knew that that was the hour when Jesus said to him, "Your son will live." And he himself believed, and all his household along with him. This now is the second sign that Jesus did when he had come from Judea to Galilee. This passage, this miracle of Jesus Christ, shows us how God can jump distances from where he is. I'm going to try and talk you through this passage and see what we can learn from this wonderful miracle that Jesus performed for an official. I want to start at the second part of the first verse, that is verses 46. At Capernaum, there was an official whose son was ill. Jesus came back to Cana, where we talked about the miracle that he did at the wedding, the same village he came. In fact, after the Cana, he went down to Jerusalem for the Passover. Now he's on his way back. On his way back, he went through Samaria, met a lady whose life he transformed, who her entire village had accepted Jesus Christ as the Messiah. Then he moved from that place and went up to Galilee and began to roam around Galilee for 2 days, preached at different places, ended up at Cana. How much it is important, we'll talk about it at the end when I bring everything into conclusion. But while he was in Cana, the news about him coming back to Cana had spread. Now, Capernaum is about 20 kilometers, 20 miles. That will be around 30 kilometers or 32 kilometers. I don't know the calculation. From Cana to Capernaum. There was this official who heard about what Jesus has done in Cana, and now that Jesus had come back to Cana after his trip to Judea, decided that he wants to go and meet Jesus. That statement first caught my attention because it taught me something very important. Jesus at Cana, official's son who is almost at the point of death in Capernaum. These two somehow are interlinked. Let's call them supernatural synchronicities. What does it mean is this: that somehow God orchestrates our life even to the point of death. Sometimes he doesn't do anything even to the point of death, because he's actually setting us up to meet right people at the right time at the right place. Very important for you to remember. God sometimes allows your problem to get tougher and more difficult and more difficult. The situation at your job to get more and more difficult. The boss that is above you, just above you, not the super boss, but somebody who is above you, to pressure you so much to the point of death. Sometimes He allows us, and you wonder, no matter how much I'm praying, nothing is happening. Why is this happening? Because God is actually setting up that entire situation and you for a miracle, but it has to happen at the right time with the right person at the right place. Imagine the official's son who is growing sick. It was a fever, right? That's what it talks about. Bible talks about him having fever. Fever is a normal thing for us. But the fever grew to feverish levels, so much that he's almost at the point of death. The father is getting desperate as he saw his son getting weaker and weaker. Now he knows that his son is going to die. And it is at that time he hears that Jesus is at Cana. I don't know, if the son did not get that verse, father probably would not have bothered to go to Jesus. I kind of like to think like that, but I actually believe that's what's the truth. With you also, right? You have experienced that. Sometimes God doesn't show up till things get so bad that you're just staring at the death. Maybe that's why, maybe that's what God wants at this moment of your life. Maybe that's what God is trying to do, to allow you to go to the point of death. Lose a job, lose your business, lose all the money. To that point, maybe then the right time will come. Maybe that's when God shows up. It could be that God is setting you up. That's from an official's perspective. But let's look at the flip side. It could be that sometimes God is moving you from this place to another place. God is moving you from one company to another company, one location to another location. God is moving you from one neighborhood to another neighborhood because somebody in that neighborhood, somebody in that location, somebody in that company needs you because you are the right person at the right time at the right place. Just like how Jesus showed up at Cana, you probably are the one who is going back to that place which you probably don't like. You wish you stay back in Hyderabad, but God is trying to push you off because that's what you are needed. That's where you are needed. Because you're going to become a miracle to your boss. Let me just explain that to you. Who has come to meet Jesus? Who is this guy? He's not an ordinary guy. You got to understand this. Now, for us, when we are reading it, that an official's son was sick and this official had come to Jesus, it looks normal. But it's not normal 2,000 years back. In ancient Israel, for a Roman official to come to a itinerant Jewish rabbi, that's not possible. For a Roman official to stoop down to the level of him actually going to a Jew. Are you getting my point right now? That doesn't happen. You see, technically, he is above the Jewish rabbi. Whoever, whatever his name is, maybe Jesus. But he is above the Jewish rabbi. Politically, he is the one who has the upper hand. He is the one who is above you. He is the one who has all the authority. At least that's what you think the authority is. But probably God is pushing you to that person to be under that wing because more than what you need from him, that person probably needs something from you. I hope I made my point to you. I know people who are above us, that big, super bosses, can be intimidating. You're not up to the mark like him. You don't have the strength that he has. You don't have the clout that he has. You don't have the influence that he has. You don't have the wealth that he has. You don't have the position that he has. You don't have the authority that he has in the terms of the world. But he's purposefully placing you there in spite of him looking extremely intimidating, because more than you know, that person actually needs you. That's probably why God is pushing you off to be there under that wing. Your life probably is the one that's going to bring a change in his life, a miracle. for that person. There's a few years back, a guy called Stanley Milgram, a psychologist, did an experiment called 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. I think the technical term is the small world phenomena for that experiment. He picked up 120 people in Omaha, Nebraska, and sent out few random letters to them addressed to somebody else. Are you getting my point? He picked up 120 people randomly. He doesn't know them. They don't know him. Just randomly sent a mail with a different person as the addressee. All right? And he wanted to see how people are connected. That's what he wanted to see. So he sent these packages across the city of Omaha. And people, as they began to receive it, they know that even though the address looks right, the addressee is not the right guy. They know that, right? You know it the moment you see. But he thought, let's see how this packet actually reaches the original owner. Just under on the package, at the corner, he wrote a small note saying this, that if you are not the addressee, kindly pass it on to somebody else who knows the addressee. That's all. You get the idea? He wanted to see how people are actually connected to one another. And as the package moved from one place to another place, and from one place to the other place to the original intended addressee, whom he already knew, as this package reached the original intended person, the addressee, it took, very interestingly, only 6 jumps in the entire city. And he said, everybody in this world is just 6 degrees away from each other. We are just 6 points away from each other. And he said, that means anything is possible in this world. This is 1966. Now with Facebook and Twitter, imagine the kind of access that you have. But the reason I pointed out that to you is this, that even though he proposed the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, I actually think you're just 1 degree away from a miracle to somebody else, from being a miracle to somebody else, from handing over the package. Between God and that person, you probably are the only degree. That's what I wanted to say. God is setting you up to be at the right place at the right time to meet the right person. He needs you, or you might need him, whatever. He could be your miracle, or you could be his miracle. You just don't know it. So I know your son is really sick. I know your son is at the point of death. Don't worry, God is setting you up. God is just setting you up. That's why I call it supernatural synchronicity, because it is God synchronizing everything for a miracle. That's one lesson that I've learned out of this simple, very simple word. Jesus at Cana, the official son at Capernaum, 20 miles away from each other. But then it was necessary that Jesus comes back to Cana so that person can hear about it and come back to meet Jesus. Out of the same verses, let me point out another one. When this man heard that Jesus had come to from Judea to Galilee, he went down to him and asked him to come down and heal his son, for he was at the point of death. And Jesus said to him, unless you see the signs and wonders, you will not believe. I'll come back to that verse a little later, but let's just move on. I just want to point out something. The official said to him, sir, come down. Let's just pause there. I already told you, for a Roman official of that authority to come down to Jesus is not a normal thing. It's not an easy thing. But then desperate situations call for desperate measures, isn't it? So even the mightiest would actually have to come down. They have to go from one corner of the world to the other corner of the world. If their dear ones are in pain and if they need a miracle in their lives, they have to go to a Jewish rabbi who probably won't be in the same village by the time you reach. You still have to go pursue. The point is, not only this person of the authority comes down to Jesus. Apparently Jesus is, under him. But then when he comes up to him and says, "Sir," then he recognizes, I know I'm politically the guy who is above you, but I realize that you are above me. You are above me. That's just the word "sir" wanted me to point out something to you. Very important lesson. God doesn't do miracles because you demand it. One more time. God doesn't do miracles because you demand it. Just because you are a Christian, just because you call yourself a child of God, and just because some pompous pastor stands up on the stage and tells you, you are a son of God, you are a king's child, do anything you want. Nah. Please understand, God doesn't bend down to demands. You are not his boss. He is your boss. Please get that equation right. Just because you're a child of God, God is not in obligation to do something for you. In fact, by calling you a child of God, God is doing a favor to you. Just be satisfied with being a child of God. Don't demand from God. God doesn't bend down to demands, neither does he bend down to briberies. Bribery, I don't know, my English is bad. Whatever. Please don't try and do business with God. Please don't give him tithes because you expect him to bless your business. Please don't do that. God will bless your business anyway. When you give back to God in gratefulness, with cheerfulness, you're saying, God, I want to just bless you back because of the things that you give me. God looks at that heart. That we already know in the Bible, so I don't want to talk about it. But please do not give to God expecting God to do something. That's a bad way of giving to God. If anybody teaches you from the pulpit, here, even in Capstone, do not come back to Capstone, including me. That's not the right way to give to God. And so don't try to offer bribes to God. God doesn't bend down to those demands. What God does bend down to is a guy buckling down on his knees and saying, God, I need you. That's called humble plea. For a man in the position of authority over Jesus, politically, buckling down on his knees and saying, Sir, can you help me? Now, this is a very important juncture at which he said, Sir, very important. The reason is, Jesus looked at him and very sarcastically told him, Fellow, I know you are coming only because you want signs and wonders. I know the statement doesn't look like that, but I'm absolutely sure that's what Jesus said. You guys come to church, you guys come to Jesus because you want miracles. You want signs. Only then you want to believe in Jesus. That's why I know you came. Now, when you hear a harsh tone like that, you really don't want to be there, especially if you are a man of authority. If you are below Jesus, in the sense of normal human standards, the political hierarchy, you probably would say, it's okay, you say whatever you say, I want this. But when you are above Jesus, quote unquote politically, you don't want to buckle down. You don't want to. You're above him. But then this man buckled down. That's what I guess made Jesus, I'm going to do a miracle for you. That's what it does all through the scripture. Watch it. God responds to a person who bends down and says, I'm going to kill my ego, I'm going to kill my pride, and I'm going to tell you, God, I know I'm worthless. Please do something about it. My life, my family's life, my son's life. He will do it. God responds only to humble pleas, not to people who demand things from him, people who recognize the sovereignty of God, people who recognize the authority of Jesus over their lives. To them, God responds. In a similar event, actually, what happened in John chapter 4, you also see in Luke chapter 7 and Matthew chapter 8, similar incident, but that's not the same place, same person, okay? In fact, it happened at the same place, but not the same guy. Another Roman centurion probably heard about what had happened to this nobleman's son, had come to Jesus and said, my servant is not well, can you do something about him? Jesus wanted to go with him. Jesus didn't want to go with this guy, so that's the difference, okay? He said, let's go. I'm amazed that a Roman centurion came to me and asked me that. And so, because this guy is actually more powerful than the one that we are reading right now. Roman centurion is more powerful than this noble official, who probably is an official in Herod's court. And so Jesus wanted to go along with him. Then the Roman centurion said something that caught Jesus off guard. What did he say? You don't have to come. I'm a man of authority, and I know how authority works. If I say to my servant to come and go, he would come and go. If I ask him to jump into an ocean, he would jump. If I ask him to jump off the cliff, he would jump gladly because I'm his master. That kind of authority I hold, and I know you have more authority. You are the one with the authority. So I know if you stand here and tell my servant to be healed, he will be healed. Where did that guy know that? Because of this guy. He recognized that Jesus has the authority over distance, over the 3 dimensions or the 4 dimensions that we contain ourselves in. Jesus is the boss of everything. He's just beyond that. You have to understand Jesus is not your teddy bear. Sorry to use that word, but I guess sometimes we treat God like that, isn't it? He's God. The sovereign over everything. He doesn't. Please don't demand things from him. Ask him if you want. Yes, he will do it. But you got to ask him like this man asked, buckling down, humbling himself before Jesus and ask him. Now, here is the point. That the same authority that is in heaven and on the earth is given to Jesus says, I've been given the authority in the heaven and on the earth. That means he's simply saying everything is under my control. I am with you. So on the flip side, if you're not the official but the one whom the official needs, don't worry. That's why I'm saying don't be intimidated by who's your boss. You have the boss with you. That kind of authority is with you. That's why God is positioning you at places, pushing you into places where you are needed. It could be in Cana, it could be in Capernaum, but God is going to place you at some place that you really need to be in. Let's come back to 48 again. What's happening in 48? So, Jesus said to him, unless you see signs and wonders, you will not believe. The official said to him, sir, come down before the child dies. My child dies. Now, Jesus said to him, go, your son will live. And the man, please say that. And the man believed. If I was the official, I would have been angry. You got to understand that. Let's just talk very realistic. Okay? Let's not quote ourselves super spiritual. We are not. We know that, right? So let's talk normally. If you are the person who is there, who already bent, because you know Jesus has the authority, and you're saying, God, I know only you have the authority, please come and do something about my son. You don't have to do that. You are above him, but you bend down to him and you're saying, please help me. Then he says, I'm not going to come. Go, your son is going to be healed. Looks like a reckless answer, isn't it? Sometimes. Look at it from that perspective. Can be. You can feel bad about it, but the man believed. But the man believed. That's where the seed of a miracle is. Here is the point. Prayer in faith is a distance killer. Prayer in faith is a distance killer. He prayed, Sir, come and heal my son. And Jesus said, go, your son will be healed. But he believed and walked, and it killed the distance. Now, I know all of us believe that prayer has power. Do you believe prayer has power? You're sure, right? That's why you wrote down all the miracles that you want on the miracle wall. But prayer in faith is the one that makes the miracle happen. I'll try and just try and explain it to you. Why prayer is really the distance killer. I don't know if you know Samuel Morse. That's a bad question to ask you, isn't it? You are all smart guys. You know who is Samuel Morse? The one who invented Morse code, the telegraph. Do you know why he did that? Because his wife died. Let me give you the story. Samuel Morse, yes, of course, he's an inventor, but he's a painter. He was commissioned to be in the capital, and where the Senate meets, right? The American Senate meets, and was commissioned to paint the Senate in session in the night. So as long as the session is happening, he was supposed to come every day and paint this painting of them sitting. We have now photograph, we have a camera, but they didn't have, so they had to have this grueling session of painting, sit through the entire painting session. So he was commissioned to do that, and while he was painting that painting, a man on a horseback reached him with a message from his father, whose father, Samuel's father, saying that your wife is convulsant. She's feverish. Come immediately. That was the message he received. And so as he began his journey from Virginia to his home, it took a week for him to reach. By the time he reached, his wife is dead and buried also. So he was really angry. He was really hurt. And he said, he told to himself, I need to do something that people like me shouldn't experience the pain that I went through, that I didn't even know that my wife is dead till I came home. So that's when he began to work with this project of sending codes from one side to the other side. That's what distance can do. I hope I made my point. Distance can kill you. King George, on July 4th, 1776, if you don't know the significance of that date, I'll tell you later. But on July 4th, 1776, in London, in his home, went to bed in the night, writing down in his diary, nothing much happened. What he didn't know is that the America had gone out of his hand on the same day. It took 4 weeks for him to know that he is not the sovereign king of America. That's what distance can do. The power in prayer is that it actually brings the place that reaction is to be taken and you to the same place. Let's call that instantaneous non-locality. I know I'm talking quantum physics right now, but that's what James Bell called it, instantaneous non-locality. For centuries, we believed that it is light that is faster than anything in this world. You probably still believe that, by the way. 186,000 miles per second. That's the speed at which the light travels. But Joshua Bell changed the entire thought on that process, because long ago, Einstein and Podolsky and another scientists have proposed that there is a fifth element in control of the four elements that we have. That even though two things are at a distance, they both are related because of a fifth element. That's the proposal Einstein gave, and he doesn't know what to call it. He called it the spooky distant action. He doesn't know what to call it, so he called it that, spooky, because I can't see anything, but it does happen. I don't know how it happens. And Joshua Bell actually proved it. Let me explain that. If you're not a science student, just switch off your mind. Don't worry about it. If you take two subatomic particles, cause a subatomic reaction, and push them into space at the same time, two subatomic particles. If you know atom, I'm talking about subatomic particle, okay? And send them in two different directions. And they're going at really great speed. You don't know how speed it is, you can't measure it. As they travel, whatever happens to one subatomic particle on the other side exactly replicates on the other side. How it takes place, nobody knows. That's why Einstein called it spooky distant action. Joshua Bell called it the non-locality, the instantaneous non-locality, because instantly the same thing is taking place at both sides. Prayer, I think, is instantaneous non-locality. That you sit here right now in Capstone and you're praying for your father in Vijayawada. At the very same time you're praying, as the prayer even leaves from your lips, even before it leaves, it's actually bringing healing to your father there. You understand what I'm trying to tell you? That's the power of prayer. That's the power of saying, sir, please come and help my son. That's why 20 miles didn't matter at all. It's like, somebody actually explained prayer as a bullet in a gun. You take a gun and shoot it in the sky. You never know when it's going to come back. You do know it's going to come back. You do know it's going to come back and cause a reaction. You just don't know when it is going to do that. That's the only thing. It could do it immediately, or it could just come down and stop at a place and go into a time capsule and explode at some other time. It could do. Some things like that happen in World War II. You know that, right? Between Scotland, in the Scandinavian Sea, a lot of missiles, German missiles, have fallen down, and now they are exploding. Now, I'm talking about World War II missiles now exploding. So, you need to understand this. Prayer never comes back without an effect. It could happen right now, it could happen some other time, but it will happen. That's why prayer is a distance killer. It will become distance killer if you believe it. See, anybody can pray. You can pray. You believe in power of prayer. So you will pray. You will come to me and you will ask me to pray. You will write down whatever you want on the prayer wall, saying, this is the miracle that I want. This is the miracle. You can do that. If I ask you to do that, it will. But it will only move from this side to the other side if you believe. Do you know how belief should be? Now, I know you know. I know you heard so much about faith. You already know the definition of faith. He believed and his family believed. Let me just help you today with that one statement. He believed and his family believed. Not only God cares about you, but he cares about your family too. Not only God transforms your life, but he will transform your family. The father came for the son. Father didn't want a miracle. Father wanted it for his son. Are you listening? But father believed that miracle is possible through Jesus Christ. And miracle did take place. But because of that, not only he changed, but father changed, mother changed, wife changed, child changed, everybody changed. So because you believe, your family will change. Because you chose to say, I know there are no signs of a miracle, but I will still continue to walk in faith, and then you see a miracle happen. Talking about miracles for families, go back and read those miracles people wrote down. You will see majority of them are talking about the family. Majority of them are pointing out to somebody who's very close to us. The miracles that you yourself wrote down. Yeah, there are things about jobs and all this stuff, but most of you talked about your family, your spouse, your child. Because you believed Jesus will change your family. However far they are. Get that? You're in Hyderabad, they could be in Chennai, Bangalore, Vellore, America, I don't know, wherever they are. He's going to change them. Instantaneous non-locality. Let me bring the entire thought to a conclusion, and I'm going to take you to a story. I still have another 10 minutes, so I can tell this story. This brilliant story. I don't know if you've read it in the Bible properly, but it's kind of, whoa, I never saw this happening. I already told you, you are somebody else's miracle. And that God is setting you up at some places at the right time, right place, right person, because God wants to do a miracle. And that's what happened in Acts chapter 8. In Acts chapter 8, a guy called Philip meets, open Acts chapter 8. If you don't have Bibles, you're really going to miss something here today. Okay, so if you have Bibles, open them and see. Keep looking at them. So God, Spirit of God tells Philip in verses 26, the angel of the Lord appeared to Philip and told him, hey, get up and start going towards south. And there is a guy who is seeking after me. I want you to go and help him to find me. The Ethiopian eunuch doesn't know that God is setting him up for the right person at the right place at the right time. Philip doesn't know why God is trying to take him all the way from Samaria down to the south, because the Ethiopian is actually going down to Africa, right? And then God enabled him to run faster than the chariot, all the way down to south. So he meets him, sits down, talks to him, and leads him to Christ. Now, we've always talked about how Philip ran in the Spirit. Have you ever heard about that? Philip actually ran in the Spirit. You cannot outrun a horse. Try and outrun a cycle, first of all. Forget about the horse. And so Philip outran, which is already on the way, which is in highway, down to Ethiopia. He actually moved all the way from Samaria down to the south and outran Ethiopian and stopped. And that itself is a miracle, by the way. Now, I know the miracle is needed there because Ethiopian has to accept Jesus Christ. Am I okay with that? Am I right to interpret like that? The miracle is needed there. Philip had to run faster than that. Sometimes God will make you run faster than a jet 747, but that's only for a miracle, which is fine. I understand that. But what happened after that kind of caught my attention. And I guess most of the time we miss it. Let's go back. Verses 39. And when they had come up out of the water, that means Philip gave him baptism, led him to Christ, gave him baptism. When they had come out of the water, please read it. The Spirit of the Lord carried him away. Now, let's read it again. The Spirit of the Lord carried him away, and the eunuch saw him no more. That's when the punch is. The eunuch saw him no more. It's like Star Trek. You know, whatever, however that guy greets. I don't know how he greets. And then, gone. Teleportation actually happened. I don't know if you're getting this. I don't know if your heads are able to get that in your head. Okay, if Jesus does that, fine. This is an ordinary guy doing it. Eunuch saw him no more. Where is he? But Philip found himself. Eunuch saw him no more, but Philip found himself in Azotus, not in Samaria. You got to get the graph right now. Sorry, you got to get the geography right. Okay? If you know how Israel looks like, Samaria is kind of right in the middle. Okay? So he's right in the middle when he was preaching. Acts chapter 8, the first part of the Acts chapter 8, you will see that Philip is in Samaria preaching the gospel and leading people to Christ. And then God pushes him down from there, from there to down south, all the way to Sinaitic Peninsula. And that happens in a miracle. Okay, there is a miracle that needs to be taken place there, understandable. But then now God teleports him all the way to Azotus, which is in Caesarea. Actually, you have to cross Israel and go all the way up to Caesarea. It's almost near to Greece. Interesting. That's the power you have in you right now. Just because you accepted Jesus Christ. Just because you truly believe that Jesus is the only way and there is no other way, that's the kind of power God placed in you, and that's the kind of things God can make you do. That's why you are the miracle for somebody else. Amazing, isn't it? I just couldn't understand how. Okay, if Jesus does that, fine, distance killing. But Jesus makes you do the distance killing. That's the fun part of the miracle. But here is the thing that you need to do. And I think, I don't know if it's a good interpretation or bad interpretation, whatever. John chapter 4 again, verses 46. So he came again to Cana in Galilee. So he came again to Cana in Galilee. The reason I'm just pointing that out is because I just want to make a point, help you to have more faith. If you struggle with faith, if you think that you do need faith, yes, you are praying, but you do need faith. Do what the father had done, a father of a child whose son was possessed by a demon. Son came to Jesus, and a father came to Jesus and asked him to heal his son, cast the demon out. Jesus said, if you believe, all things are possible. The father looks at Jesus and says, help me. Help me. What? Believe. Help me believe. Help my unbelief. That, in other words, he's not saying increase my unbelief. He's actually saying take away my unbelief. Give me belief. So if God is unusually moving you from one place to the other place, or placing you at places or companies or neighborhoods, he probably is setting you up. So be willing to accept it, and you could be the miracle for somebody. Or maybe somebody is going to bring that miracle to you. You were looking for a miracle and that person is there. So nothing in your life as a child of God happens without God synchronizing everything around you. So instead of demanding it from Him or blackmailing God for it or bribing God, humble yourself and say, God, I recognize your authority. I would love to see you do this in my life. And maybe that prayer in faith becomes your distance killer, because you have the Lord of the longitude and the latitude with you. Just pray a prayer of, I want the faith. I want to have faith, God, in me. I'm going to believe for the miracle. I'm going to believe for the miracle that I am looking for, and I know that it will happen. Let me just pray for you. And as I pray, we will bring back the wall here for you So if you did not write for a miracle last week, here is another chance for you. You can do that at the end of the service. It'll be here. But believe that this miracle that you're looking for is possible. And things will happen. Let me pray. It's just brilliant how you speak to us each week, week by week. And God, that we want to thank you for what you spoke to us today, the master of the distance. I pray that today you would give me faith. You help me to believe in you, God, so that I may truly see a miracle in my life. I confess it, I declare it with my mouth that God, you are a great God. You are a miracle working God, and I believe in you. I pray for everyone who's praying that prayer in humility. I pray that they would see their miracle, God. That they are going to keep their pair of shoes in the closet and wait for the miracle because they believe in miracles, God. Help them not to throw away their pair of shoes. May they keep them. Keep hoping, keep believing. Because you will eventually bring a result to the prayers. Bless you, Jesus.